So you guys want to know about beneficial bacteria. What does it actually do? What is the role it plays? And how can we effectively establish a colony of our own in a brand new tank? How can we enjoy the fish that we just got by putting it into that brand new fancy tank that you just set up? Your research probably shows you it could be weeks, it could be months until your tank is cycled and suitable for life. Well, we're going to debunk that. We're going to get into beneficial bacteria, how it works, and how we can use it to our advantage to speed up the process and enjoy that fish that you just got on day one. Stay tuned. We're going to get right into it. Welcome back to Aquazen Exotic Aquatics. Really appreciate you being here. This is the Deep Dive Show, and we've got a really interesting topic to go over today. So what we're going to be discussing is beneficial bacteria, and we're really going to be breaking it down to give you a better understanding of what beneficial bacteria is, the role it plays in your aquarium, and tips and tricks that you can use to your advantage to jumpstart a brand new aquarium the right way. So there's a couple questions that we're going to answer today. Number one, can I just use water from my other aquarium that is already cycled? Number two, am I able to cycle a tank with my fish already in it? Number three, what role do plants play in cycling an aquarium? And number four, what are optimal conditions to sustain a beneficial bacteria colony? Transferring water from an existing aquarium to a brand new aquarium is a common practice among aquarists who hope to speed up the cycling process and establish bacteria in the new tank. This method is largely ineffective and can actually create a false sense of security. To understand why this approach does not work, it is essential to examine the role of beneficial bacteria in the nitrogen cycle, where the bacteria primarily resides, and why water transfer alone does little to establish a stable aquarium environment. The nitrogen cycle is the backbone of a healthy aquarium. In this cycle, beneficial bacteria converts harmful ammonia produced by fish waste and decaying organic matter into nitrites and subsequently into less toxic nitrates. The bacteria is essential for maintaining water quality and ensuring the safety of the inhabitants. However, contrary to common belief, the bacteria does not live in the water column. Instead, they primarily colonize on surfaces of the aquarium with high oxygen and nutrient availability, such as filter media, substrate rocks, and decor. Now, when water is transferred from an established aquarium into a new one, it contains only trace amounts of beneficial bacteria, since the water itself is not a primary habitat for them. The majority of the bacteria are organisms that adhere to surfaces, forming biofilms. The amount of bacteria present in the water column is simply insufficient to establish a stable biological filter in the new tank. Therefore, relying on water transfer alone does not promote the growth of a robust bacterial colony capable of supporting the nitrogen cycle. In fact, transferring water from an existing tank can actually do more harm than good. The water may carry dissolved organic compounds, nitrates, or phosphates, which can contribute to algae blooms and other water quality issues in the aquarium. Pathogens or parasites present in the original tank may be unintentionally transferred. A more effective approach to cycling a new aquarium involves transferring established filter media, substrate, or decor from a mature tank. These items are rich in beneficial bacteria and can provide a head start in establishing the nitrogen cycle. Alternatively, using bottled bacterial supplements specifically designed for aquarium cycling can also help introduce the necessary microorganisms to the new environment. Regular testing of ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate levels during the cycling process ensures that the tank is progressing as expected and that the water conditions remain safe for the fish. The big question, how to do a fission cycle, and is it safe? Well, the short answer is yes, but largely depends on the certain circumstances of your situation. Placing a fish into a tank that has not been properly cycled can expose them to high levels of ammonia and nitrate. It's the equivalent to locking yourself in a garage with your car running and no ventilation to release the toxins in the air. It won't take long until that environment is just not suitable for sustaining life. So how do we get around this? Obviously, the easiest thing to do would be to simply just cycle the tank before adding your aquatic friends, but if you're in a time crunch, a little added effort will allow you to sustain fish in your tank immediately. After you have your tank filled with water, we'll want to immediately add live nitrifying bacteria. Most of the ones available on the market today seem to work very well. I've always used Seachem Stability for startup tanks and occasional maintenance on already running systems. If you have filter media, decorations, rocks, substrate, or even driftwood from a pre-existing aquarium, you'll want to place that in your new setup, at least temporarily, to jumpstart the colony of beneficial bacteria in your tank. Remember, beneficial bacteria inhabits all surfaces in aquarium, so any object that has spent time in a cycled tank can be used to transfer the colony to any other tank. Let's go over what sort of parameters and conditions we need to successfully start our colony of bacteria. Recent studies have shown that beneficial bacteria thrives and multiplies in warmer temperatures. The optimal range seems to be between 77 and 86 degrees Fahrenheit, which puts us right at standard tropical temps, all the way to very warm temperatures that are more optimal for specialty fish like discus or rams. This is not to say that colonies cannot be established in colder water systems like ponds or goldfish tanks, but the less warmth that is available, the longer it will take to fully cycle the tank. In fact, the growth rate of nitrifying bacteria decreases by 50% by the time we're at 64 degrees Fahrenheit and by 75% at 46 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Beneficial bacteria then begins to become ineffective at 39 degrees and completely dies off at freezing temperatures and below. Maintaining beneficial bacteria colonies is very similar to keeping fish in the sense that they both require varying levels of warmth as well as oxygen. We will want to have plenty of oxygen and surface agitation, especially when first setting up your aquarium. Covering all bases is essential so no part of your aquatic system is void of very much needed parameters. Go ahead and add your fish on day one, while still dosing the recommended amount of liquid nitrifying bacteria for a set amount of time, usually 7 consecutive days. The real trick is to test your aquarium frequently for rising levels of nitrate and ammonia with specific test strips offered online or at your local fish shop. This will tell you when to change the water and how much water to change until your tank is cycled. If you're finding that the tank is requiring excessive water changes, a great workaround is to add plants to help soak up some of those toxins. The important thing to keep in mind is that not all plants are created equal. Some will be better for this specific situation than others. For example, throwing in a bunch of Anubias or Amazon swords will do little to nothing in lowering excessive nitrate and ammonia levels. While Anubias is a water column feeding plant, meaning it takes in nutrients contained in the water, it grows very slowly and actually prefers low light. Amazon swords, even though they enjoy higher levels of light, actually only receive 25% of their nutrient intake from the water column and 75% from fish waste found in the substrate. Plants like Amazon swords or cryptocorns are considered heavy root feeders and do little to effectively lower concentrated amounts of toxins contained within the water column. What plants would be best? We're going to be looking for water column feeding powerhouses. We can actually divide these into two groups: free floating, submerged plants, and true floating plants that have roots in the water but leaves that reside above the water line. Plants like guppy grass and hornwort are extremely effective submerged plants that free float and suck up tons of organic compounds in the water column. Both can thrive in high light and actually grow quicker in these conditions. The other type is true floating plants. These are even more effective at controlling levels of toxins in your tank. The beauty of true floating plants like duckweed, water spangles, red roof floaters, water lettuce, and Amazon frogbit is that the tops of these plants have unlimited access to CO2 in the air, unlike other submerged plants that have to make do with the CO2 content contained within the water column. You can even mix both types together and get better results to reduce necessary water changes. The only downside to the true floating plants is that they require low flow systems. These plants hate to be blown around on the surface of your water, and if the tops of the leaves are exposed to continual moisture, they will wither away and actually begin to decay. I have also found success with tossing some snails into a new tank and lightly feeding them. The best snails for this would be pond snails, bladder snails, and ram's horn. A small group of hardy snails does wonders for producing minimal amounts of waste and breaking down any food or organic material they can find in the tank. The snails mentioned are also extremely hardy and forgiving, oftentimes somehow finding a way to survive in less than optimal conditions. This does not mean you should neglect your snail friends, but it should simply reassure beginner fish keepers that one simple mistake most likely will not kill your entire colony of snails and cause an overnight ammonia spike. It is advisable not to overcrowd the tank, ever, but especially when you're trying to cycle it. The more fish you add to a new tank at the same time, the higher chance you have of running into issues, and the harder it will be to combat rising levels of toxins. The only way to ensure your cycle is going to plan is to continually test the water and adjust your strategy based on the results. Cycling a new aquarium doesn't have to take weeks or months, as long as you stay on top of the parameters and keep a close eye on the system as a whole. After a tank is cycled, the next step is to season a tank. The term was presented to me by Aquarium Co-op, where Corey explains that even though a tank is cycled, that does not necessarily by default mean that the tank has a complete and thriving ecosystem within it. We will cover my thoughts and experiences with that topic in a future video, since we're focusing more on the initial tank cycle here, but I hope that this helps cover any questions you guys may have on speeding up a tank cycle safely so that you can enjoy the fish that you just got immediately. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We're gonna have a lot more videos here. We have a lot going on in the fish room. There's going to be a whole ton of new videos out. Stay tuned for that. Really appreciate you guys being here. This is Aquazen Exotic Aquatics on the Deep Dive Show, and we're going to catch you next time. Thanks, guys.